Hi guys, welcome to an interesting video on Wild Rift. Today we're back with yet another 2.48 tier list, and today we're going on to my favorite one, which is the AD carry tier list, of course. So this is of course my main role, so I'm really excited to talk about it. But before we get into that, of course this is going to be a series of 5. This is the 4th one of the detailed analysis of each champion viable in each role, and this is of course for solo queue, not duo or trio queue, not 5-man, and doesn't really take pro play into account. So of course, if you guys like my videos and all, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and as well as check out the other tier lists up in the cards above. Alright, so now, onto the AD carry tier list itself. So first up, before even starting, I would say that AD carry is the most balanced role at the moment, in a sense that honestly, I feel that almost all AD carries are somewhat viable in the meta. Maybe not the like C and D tier AD carries, but from S plus to B, honestly, I feel the difference, or maybe S plus to A, maybe, I feel like the difference isn't really a lot. I feel like the gap between S and S plus is very, very small, and the gap between A and S is really small as well. And honestly, to a very large extent, the gap between A and B, B and C, C and D are all really small as well. Just that, honestly, I think that anything picked from the S plus to the A, you really can't go wrong with it. So basically, essentially, that means that there are 10 like really viable meta champions for AD carry as a role. So I think that the AD carry role is really balanced at the moment. Of course, AD carries are the main benefactors of the 2.4a item change, where if you guys take a look at the S plus and the S tier, majority of them will actually take advantage of items like Essence Reaver, Solari Charge Blade, and Sorelda's Grudge. Alright, so without further ado, let's quickly jump into it. So first up at the very top, we have Kai'Sa. So Kai'Sa, of course, has a new build with the Solari Charge Blade. I will come up with a new Kai'Sa complete guide sooner or later, coming up real soon. So Kai'Sa is still the top AD carry with her new Solari Charge Blade build. She pretty much does the same as what she used to do, just that she's now pretty much even better with the Solari Charge Blade build. A lot more damage and assassination potential. Although I would say that she is in fact flexible, in the sense that she can also go for her old build with the Runan's Hurricane, especially when you're playing into like 3 or more frontline fighters or tanks. Probably the Runan's Hurricane build is better just to get off your passive more often. But Kai'Sa is still undisputedly the best AD carry. But who is second best in my opinion is Xayah. Now Xayah, we have already made a complete guide on her, so I will link that up in the description, and not link it up in the description, link it up in the cards for you guys to check it out. We just released it recently. So Xayah, honestly, she has a lot of tools for safety. She has her ultimate, which gives her untargetability. She has her feathers to pull back if people go on her, and on top of that, you normally build Zanya's Hourglass as well as Guardian Angel for another 2 more safety tools. So honestly, Xayah, I feel like it's really underrated. Not many people play her, but if you do, she is really strong with her basic attacks and with her roots. She brings a lot to the table. Now Lucian and Corki as well, both just got nerfed, of course, as I discussed in the mid lane tier list. So they are not as good as what they were previously, but I feel that Lucian is still S plus tier, although just barely hanging on at the bottom of S plus. As I said, the S tier is really close to S plus, so he could be considered the top of S as well. So he is, of course, still really strong. In the early levels, he's still really strong. There really is no change there. They're just really he took a knock to his scaling on his AD basically, but that 1580, of course, it does make a difference. Not a tremendous difference, but still a difference nonetheless. And as a matter of fact, it actually kind of did help him a bit, because most people perceive him to be weaker than what he really is, and he's getting banned a lot less than in patch 2.4. So this actually might be sort of a good thing for him. But Lucian is still really strong with his all-in potential. Pretty much just doing a lot of damage. It's pretty much just all about the damage. The E nerfs didn't really affect him at all. Lucian just does a lot of damage. His only weakness is, of course, his range and his cooldowns, but other than that, he's really strong. Now Corki, of course, is a little bit of a different sort of AD carry, in the sense that he is a magic damage AD carry and he does 80% magic damage. Now, that is honestly the only reason I put him in the S tier. I do think he's S+. However, just because of the fact that sometimes your team comp just doesn't have any doesn't have any strong physical damage sources, so you might not really want to pick Corki. So I can't really put him in S+, because he's not a champion you can pick in 100% of your games, unless you want to troll your team. So if you imagine we have like a Malphite top, we have like a Lee Sin in the jungle, and in the mid lane, let's say we have an AP champion, like let's say a Katarina, and you have a enchanter support. Your only real form of physical damage if you pick Corki is the Lee Sin. And of course, Lee Sin doesn't put out any kind of consistent DPS. He's just there for the burst and the utility, especially in the late game. So what you really need is a AD, an AD carry. Technically, Corki is an AP carry, but you know he's in the AD carry tier list. So you need like a Kaisa, you need a Zai, you need a Lucian. You do not need a Corki. Now, on the flip side, Corki is really good into team comps that are lacking magic damage. Sometimes you have like an Olaf in the top lane, you have a Master Yi in the jungle, you have a Irelia in the mid lane, and you have an Leona support, and your team has no AP at all. Now, these are the kind of team comps that you want to pick Corki in. So Corki in the AD carry role is really strong, but you gotta pick him in the right team comp. That's why I pull him down to S tier. So Corki, of course, is still really good. That's insane damage. And just slightly below him is Ezreal. Now, Ezreal didn't really benefit as much from the 2.4 items as the rest. He, of course, did get Sorelda's Grudge, which does actually improve his build by a ton. So it's not like he didn't benefit at all. But he can't really build Solari Charge Blade. He can actually build Essence Reaver, but it's not really his optimal build. The optimal build is still the Manamune Triforce and the Sorelda's Grudge. Fitting in an Essence Reaver, not really the best idea, at least at the current moment, and Crit Ezreal isn't as strong as the on-hit Ezreal. So, next we have Draven. Now, Draven, honestly, I think if you are good at him, he could be S+. He probably is on par with Kaisa, or maybe even better. He benefited a ton from the new items. His Bloodthirster, of course, got crits and got an increase in AD in patch 2.4a. So his Bloodthirster, his favorite item, got stronger. He can build new items like Solari Charge Blade and Essence Reaver if you want to. And he pretty much just got way better. But just because of his difficulty, I actually put him down a little bit. But if you play him optimally, he will be like S+ tier. Now, next we have Senna. Now, if you guys actually notice, I have a Senna in the S tier and a Senna in the B tier. The S tier Senna is the fasting Senna played with a support. So basically, what you want to do with fasting Senna is you generally want to play with a kind of tank engage support, not really with a enchanter support. You want to play with something like a Galio or like a Leona, who does really well with farm, who can build up some tanky items. So you give them the farm and essentially play Senna as a support. But since you already have a support, you're technically an AD carry Senna who doesn't take farm, hence it's called Fasting Senna. So Fasting Senna, I believe, is S tier. The only main problem with Fasting Senna is that you take very, very long to ramp up. You need like at least like 15 minutes, or maybe not 15, maybe 12 to 13 minutes to collect enough souls to get your Gathering Storm stacked up and to get like a couple of items to actually start being useful, which is the main issue. So sometimes games are already won and lost in the first 10 minutes and Senna is irrelevant. But if you can get past the early to mid game, in the later stages of the game, Senna will just take over. So she is still in the S tier. Now in the A tier is Jinx. Now honestly, Jinx doesn't really benefit from the 2.4 items. She doesn't really build Solari Charge Blade or Essence Reaver. Her build is pretty much the same. She doesn't build Sorelda's Grudge either. And she also got the nerf to her ultimate, where she can no longer steal objectives with her ultimate. So overall, it's not really the fact that she gotten weaker. It's just the fact that everybody else gotten significantly stronger, but she has not. So she sits in the A tier. Same story with Varus. The lethality Varus is in the A tier. He is still really good and still pokes out enemies a lot, but he has two main problems. Firstly, of course, the fact that he doesn't really benefit so much from the new items. He does build Sorelda's Grudge though, but he doesn't really build the others like the Solari Charge Blade and all. So he doesn't really benefit too much. And the next problem is the fact that he mainly relies on his poke. So in order to pilot Varus correctly, you have to be poking out the enemy team from afar, like before the team fight, so that when they're fighting, they are already chunked out. And this playstyle, if the enemy knows how to play against it, they'll just hard engage onto you and your team, and you won't have the time to do so. So Varus is just not that strong of a pick in general. And now we move on to Vayne. Now Vayne, honestly, she benefited a lot from the new 2.4 items, as well as getting buffed for a lot of patches. Her silver bolts got buffed, her ultimate got buffed like multiple times, her condemn damage got buffed. She got so many buffs, and I think that honestly she's in the A tier. She might even be above Jinx and Varus in the right situation where there are multiple frontline tanks and fighters. Vayne will just shred through them. I have been actually playing a lot of Vayne recently, so perhaps we might be seeing a Vayne commentary or complete guide sooner or later, but Vayne is pretty strong at the moment. Now her only limitation is the one that she always had, which is the fact that she is single target. So pretty much every AD carry above her, with the exception of maybe Ezreal, is an AoE kind of character. The problem with Vayne, she only attacks one person at one time, so it can be a little bit hard in fights, because you either need to focus like the tank and just burst down the tank, in which case you might get attacked by the carry, or if you want to try to like focus multiple people, you won't be able to proc off your passive. So Vayne is a little bit difficult to pilot in that kind of sense, where you have to have a good target selection and all. So Vayne for me is like in the A tier. Now in the B tier is Jhin. Now I have tried Jhin with a new item build, which is of course IE into Stormrazor. Stormrazor benefits Jhin a lot. And other than Jhin, pretty much no one else built Stormrazor except Tristana. But Jhin is honestly pretty solid. His damage is pretty solid, but his wave clear is pretty solid. But he has no mobility. He doesn't have a really good build path. Like the last time, Yomu's Ghost Blade got nerfed, Guardian Angel got nerfed. So Jin's still kind of in limbo. He's not that bad, but he's not that good either. And next to him is the AD carry farming Senna, who really doesn't benefit too much, because with farm you can get items, but you cannot actually get souls really quickly, so she really isn't as good. But I would say she's still better than the champions that are below her, which are champions like Akshan. Now Akshan, as a champion in itself, even in his optimal role, which is the mid lane, I don't think he's really that good in the first place. But in the AD carry role, he's even worse, because pretty much playing Akshan as AD carry, you will never really make true good use of his W, which is his stealth, because his main use of the stealth is to leave mid lane and to gank another lane when roaming, so you don't get spotted out by wards. But in the AD carry position, you rarely would go and gank mid lane, so you wouldn't really make use of that. So that's already one part of Akshan's kit that you are really not making good use of, and Akshan in general as a champion is just not very strong. So now we move on to the last three champions. We have Tristana. Now Tristana, I feel, might be underrated. She can do insane amounts of damage, but she has a couple of problems. The first problem is the fact that she, a lot like Vayne, is single target. So her main damage is comes from like her, aside from her R attacks, come from her bomb, her E, which she puts onto her person. Obviously, only one person at one time. Of course, if the enemies are dumb enough to stand close together, it's gonna explode onto all of them, but that may not always be the case, so she is a relatively single target. And the main problem is two things. Controlling her in mobile is a little bit of a challenge, because putting the bomb on the correct person, you have to aim your bomb, and then after that, targeting the correct person who has the bomb is yet another problem, where you have to aim manually, and you can't just auto-aim the bomb, you can just auto-aim your basic attack. So it is a little bit challenging to pilot Tristana. And however, she does really benefit from the new like Stormrazor. She doesn't really benefit from Charge Blade, but she does benefit from Stormrazor. So she is pretty alright. And I have actually got destroyed by like 1 or 2 Tristanas in rank, so I'm not really gonna underestimate her too much. So she might actually really be underrated, but I personally don't feel like she's really that good. Although we'll have to see. Maybe is she just underrated and underpicked, underrepresented. So maybe when more people pick her, she might actually appear to be stronger than she is. Now, Misfortune completely fallen out of favor in the meta. She was once the best AD carry, but now she has no mobility. She doesn't really benefit from the new items except for the Essence Reaver, and she's just really easy to catch out and die. And there, she needs like a team to wombo combo with her ultimate. If not, her damage is really stunted, because her auto attack damage doesn't really do all that much. And Ashe, honestly, Her damage is very, very lackluster. The only thing she brings to the table is her utility with her slows, with her vision, control on her E and her stun, and pick potential on her ultimate. So I feel like this is more of like a pro play kind of pick, but I haven't really even seen it in pro play. But basically, she's just horrible. I honestly think that she's so bad in the AD carry role that I think that the Troll Ashe support with the like Ardent Sensor and the Fawn of Life kind of build is even better than the AD carry tier list, because at least you're playing into her strengths of her slows, her stuns, and her vision control. So I honestly think Ashe AD carry is just bad. Regardless, thank you guys for watching the video, guys. And we come to the end of the tier list for ADCs. We're going to move on to support in the future. So thank you guys for watching, and goodbye.